You're totally out of league with a guy like Lance, who makes $10,000 a month. It's only natural he'd leave you.
Apparently, Lance's parents are on their way to the new house. It seems Lance secretly arranged for an apartment where he could live with his parents. Unexpectedly, his father showed a rare moment of kindness and defended me.
Well, no need to say that. After all this, she must have learned her lesson, right? Anyway, what I want to say is, act like a proper wife. If you seriously work as a housekeeper, I'll share the address.
I don't fully understand the situation yet, but there's one thing I know for sure. Even if Lance leaves me, I won't be in trouble at all. Then I'm returning my husband, who's worth $1 a day.
What?
The moment they open the door to the apartment, his parents will realize the harsh reality. I'm Amelia Smith. In my late 20s, many of my friends started getting married. I longed to get married, but I just didn't have any luck meeting the right guy. I figured the right person would eventually come along, so I wasn't too worried. But suddenly, I found myself in my mid-30s. Feeling like I was falling behind, I decided to try a dating app. And soon, I met someone great.
Hey, you must be tired from work. Hungry? I checked out a few nearby places, and there's Japanese, Chinese, and Italian. Which one do you feel like?
That's Lance. When I was late for our date because of work, he didn't get upset and showed genuine concern. At 42 years older than me, Lance exudes a gentle, laid-back vibe. Before meeting him, I'd come across a string of guys on the app who either had serious issues or were just looking for a fling, making me nearly give up on dating altogether. Meeting someone as wonderful as Lance made me feel so lucky. Our relationship progressed smoothly, and before I knew it, we were married. Now, we're enjoying our newlywed life in a spacious apartment in downtown Chicago.
I'll take care of the housework. It's the least I can do.
3 months into marriage, housework had become Lance's responsibility. But, to be honest, he's not great at it. When we were dating and he first invited me over to his place, it wasn't messy since he didn't own much, but his cleaning skills left much to be desired, making me cringe. Even now, his household skills haven't improved much. He's constantly burning pots or forgetting to take washed clothes out of the washing machine, leaving our days a chaotic mess.
These days, guys who can't do chores aren't considered cool, right? I know I keep messing up, but I'll keep trying.
Thanks. I'm counting on you. Even though he wasn't perfect at housework, his effort made me happy. Our relationship is good overall, but there's one problem. It was his parents.
Where on earth have you been wandering around this late?
When I got home from work, his parents were there. Behind his already furious parents, Lance lip-synced to me, "Sorry." I've always known that Lance struggles with his overbearing parents, so he likely couldn't refuse their visit.
Don't you think it's embarrassing for a married woman to be roaming around at night?
It was only 7 p.m. Getting home at this time isn't unusual for someone with a job. But I knew common sense didn't apply to his parents. "Sorry, work ran late." I apologized lightly, focusing on keeping the lecture short. Tonight's dinner featured a spread of gourmet dishes from a high-end deli, neatly arranged on the table. Lance had likely splurged on this as part of his maximum hospitality effort to appease his parents. When his father, Sam, tried to continue criticizing me, Lance poured him a drink, signaling it was time for dinner.
Women are meant to support the household.
But dear, these days, men who help with housework are celebrated. Our Lance is wonderful for pitching in. Must be my excellent parenting, right? Unlike this daughter-in-law, though.
It's pathetic for a man to be bossed around by a woman.
The delicious food lost its appeal amidst their constant snide remarks. His parents chewed noisily, endlessly bringing up outdated notions, bizarre opinions, and criticisms of me. Lance and I ignored everything, quietly eating. Of course, I wanted to respond. I'm not the type to shy away from conflict. In fact, I once replied with a logical comeback to one of their snarky comments that only led to them exploding in rage, yelling unintelligibly. Their fury was terrifying. I was shocked by the sheer amount of fluids as they cried, spat, and even had snot running down their noses. Clearly, angering them isn't worth the trouble. Thankfully, they live 3 hours away by car, so I assumed we'd only see them during the holidays. Avoiding unnecessary conflict and keeping things calm seemed like the smartest approach. I never imagined they'd show up uninvited to our home like this. I couldn't help but wonder if this might become a regular occurrence. After dinner, without hesitation, they stayed over, citing the late hour. Once they were asleep, Lance and I sighed in unison in our bedroom. They were intense today. They're leaving tomorrow, right?
Sorry, actually, my mom and dad want to move in with us.
What? I let out a loud gasp before quickly covering my mouth. The thought of living together with his parents sent a chill down my spine.
You see, my dad retired last year. They're feeling anxious since their savings are running low. So they were thinking about either moving in with us or...
Lance trailed off, leaving the rest unsaid. I immediately guessed what he meant. Financial support. Well, yeah, that's probably what it comes down to. Living together or financial support. If those were my choices, financial support won by a landslide. Even if it meant a little extra strain, it was far better than having them invade our peaceful life. And so, we decided to provide financial support to his parents. It would be a lie to say I had no complaints.
I'm really sorry about my parents.
But seeing Lance lower his head apologetically and trying even harder with the housework made it impossible for me to refuse. Lance is a modest person. When I ask what he wants as a token of appreciation, he always says, "I don't need anything."
Actually, I buy coffee from the nearby convenience store every day. Sorry for splurging a bit.
To honor Lance's small indulgences, I figured helping his parents was a fair trade-off. As long as his parents weren't involved, our home was wonderfully peaceful. Lance is hardworking and tries to make me happy with his cooking, even though he's not very experienced.
Welcome home, honey. You must be tired from work.
Tonight's dinner was Italian meatballs. Wow, it's like something from a restaurant. My excitement was short-lived, though I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. That's such cute little meatballs.
Yeah. Oh, it's small, right? I made them smaller.
His nonsensical explanation only deepened my suspicion. Upon closer inspection, the meal balls was heart-shaped. Even the usually soggy lettuce in the salad was properly drained and neatly torn into bite-sized pieces. His cooking skills had improved dramatically overnight. Maybe he had consulted a cookbook or watched some tutorial videos. While the meatballs was delicious that night, the next evening's dinner reverted back to his typical style. The Indian curry was chunky and lacked thickening, and the salad consisted of 2 whole lettuce leaves. This was his usual level, so I couldn't help but wonder what the deal was with the fancy Italian meatballs from the day before. Once you start noticing one thing, other oddities start to stand out. The usually wrinkled laundry would sometimes be hung neatly, and the dusty corners of the room or tops of shelves would occasionally be spotless. Even the leaves on the houseplants, which Lance would never notice, stayed clean for days without me wiping them. That's weird. Does he just randomly get motivated sometimes? Lance can be a little absent-minded, but maybe he gets bursts of energy every now and then. Even though the unmotivated days outnumber the motivated ones, I still feel genuinely happy when he serves up restaurant-quality meals or tidies up the house so well. I was grateful to Lance. But one night, while taking a bath, I noticed something I couldn't ignore. What is this? What's going on? In that moment, I realized why Lance's motivation seemed so inconsistent. It's been 3 months since I began suspecting Lance. During that time, he remained kind, diligently handling housework despite his clumsiness, and occasionally displaying an unusually meticulous side. Just as I was gathering the courage to act, his parents beat me to it.
Hello, what are you up to right now?
It was 10 a.m. Of course, I was at work. Were they intentionally trying to disrupt my work by calling in the middle of a weekday? I'm working right now, I answered cautiously, only to hear Sam's voice in the background.
You've got some nerve calling at work. If you want to work so badly, you shouldn't have gotten married. It's disgraceful for a woman to leave the house.
I wanted nothing more than to silence his outdated parents, but arguing over the phone seemed pointless. As always, I decided to brush it off with an insincere, "I'm sorry." However, Sam seemed to be in a good mood, chuckling with his wife on the other end of the line. I couldn't understand what they found so amusing, and it unsettled me.
That's why Lance is going to leave you.
Excuse me, what did you say? His voice sounded oddly cheerful despite the ominous words.
I said Lance is leaving you. You're supposed to be working, yet you can't even grasp that. No wonder you're a burden at work.
Their mocking laughter echoed directly in my ears. As I stayed silent, my mother-in-law, Carol, began explaining the situation in detail.
Well, it's no surprise. A wife who uses work as an excuse to boss around her husband deserves it. You've been dumped. Lance got tired of you and moved out.
What? I could only manage a weak response. Hearing his parents gloat over the cracks in our marriage filled me with disdain.
Lance is such a kind soul. You didn't realize how much stress he was under living with you, did you? You failed as his wife. He rented a new apartment and plans to live there from now on.
I see. Apparently, they were on their way to this new apartment, which they claimed was meant for the 3 of them to live together. It seemed they had always preferred living together over financial support. and now plan to enjoy life without the nuisance of a daughter-in-law. That doesn't make sense, I muttered quietly, feeling a mix of confusion and disbelief. The idea that Lance, fed up with our life together, secretly prepared a new apartment and invited his parents over didn't add up. It had to be a lie. A desperate attempt to rattle me. But then, why were his parents so giddy, even humming happily? Could it actually be true? Confusion and annoyance swirled together in my head. Sensing my hesitation, Carol declared loudly,
Someone like you doesn't deserve Lance, who makes $10,000 a month. It's no wonder he dumped you.
Surprisingly, Sam showed a rare moment of kindness and defended me.
Don't say that. After all this, she must have learned her lesson, right? What I'm saying is, a wife should act like a proper wife. If you're willing to take your role as a housekeeper seriously, I'll give you the address.
I still didn't fully understand the situation, but there was one thing I was sure of. Even if Lance left me, I wouldn't be in any trouble. Then I'll be returning my husband worth $1 a day.
What?
There's no way I'm playing housekeeper. While berating me, his parents also offered me a chance to redeem myself as their daughter-in-law. I had no intention of becoming a convenient wife for their benefit, no matter how generous their offer.
What are you saying? Do you even understand what daily wage means? Seriously, how can someone like you even hold down a job? This is why women shouldn't work. Quit right now, and you're just a burden to your company.
$1 a day. Apparently, even suggesting that figure was enough to make them think I was clueless.
Maybe you meant $10,000 a month? Oh my, is the number just too big for your tiny brain to handle? How silly of you.
The two of them burst into even louder laughter. As this exchange continued, their car reached the apartment that was supposedly their new home. Once inside the entrance, the call switched to a video call.
Look at this. Isn't it a nice apartment?
They were showing it off to me, to make me feel miserable as the abandoned woman. I was irritated and wanted to end the call, but I needed to confirm if Lance had really set up a new place and invited his parents. The elevator stopped on the second floor, and his parents walked down the hallway.
This is it. This is our new home.
They said, beaming as they opened the door.
Wow, this is so. Wait.
Their excited voices vanished instantly.
Who are you?
The person on the screen was a young woman. Both she and his parents froze as if they'd stumbled upon a burglar. The woman was the first to scream.
Thief.
Her scream jolted his parents back to their senses.
You're the thief. What are you doing in our apartment?
Perhaps because the person was a young woman, they didn't seem scared and barged right into the entrance.
Who are you? Get out. This is our new home.
They shouted angrily, but my phone screen showed a room that was unmistakably hers. There were pink curtains and a fluffy white rug. It was a charming and youthful space that clearly belonged to her. This didn't look like a room Lance would have prepared to live with his parents.
What? I live here, you clueless old geezers. Get out right now, or I'll call the cops.
Despite her cute appearance, The young woman stood her ground, hurling insults at his parents without hesitation. Her boldness startled them, and they finally began to consider that they might have entered the wrong apartment.
Okay, our mistake. Looks like we got the wrong place. After all, there's no way our new home would be some tiny apartment where you can see the whole room from the entrance.
Even while apologizing, my mother-in-law couldn't resist adding an unnecessary jab.
Exactly. There's no way 3 adults could live in a cramped place like this. Not to brag, but our Lance is an elite who makes $10,000 a month. You should feel honored to live in the same building as him.
He proudly added more irrelevant details. At that moment, the woman's eyebrow twitched slightly.
Lance.
Suddenly calm, the woman seemed to notice that my mother-in-law had used a key to unlock the door. Indeed, she had opened it with a key. This wasn't a case of a confused elderly couple accidentally entering the wrong apartment. The 3 of them were likely still confused, so I decided to step in and clear things up. Carol, there's no mistake.
No.
When I suddenly spoke from behind them, she screamed in fright. My unexpected appearance made my father-in-law and the woman widen their eyes, though they seemed too stunned by my mother-in-law's horror movie-worthy scream to react. As soon as I got the call from in-laws, I'd interrupted my work, jumped into a taxi, and come straight here. The sheer terror on Carol's face made her look like a hideous ghost. Though I was slightly concerned for her racing heart, I pressed on with the conversation. Carol, this is indeed the apartment Lance prepared.
What? But, huh?
My in-laws stared at the young woman and the apartment, scrutinizing every detail before shaking their heads.
No, this can't be.
Their much-anticipated new home was a cramped one-bedroom unit, and it came with a complete stranger. It was natural for them to have trouble accepting it. But this was the undeniable reality. Leaving my in-laws to their disbelief, I turned to the young woman. You're Chloe, aren't you?
What?
Hearing her name, Chloe flinched slightly. Though she looked like the victim of an intrusion, she wasn't entirely innocent either. Nice to meet you. I'm Amelia Smith, Lance's wife. Thank you for taking such good care of my husband.
Oh.
Despite my polite introduction, Chloe didn't even manage a proper response. To ease the tension, I offered her a friendly smile. You've got adorable decor. Such great taste. I think your room is lovely. It might be a bit tight, but Lance's parents will be living here with you, so please take good care of them.
What?
Chloe clearly looked uncomfortable, her brows furrowing as she stepped back slightly. I smiled even more warmly. Oh, don't worry. My in-laws aren't the senile old fools you seem to think they are. They're just your average, completely unreasonable old folks. I introduced them with a polite greeting, covering for my in-laws, whose faces had frozen in discomfort. However, my in-laws didn't appreciate it and shoved me aside.
Who are you calling unreasonable old folks?
You're the unreasonable one, acting all high and mighty for a daughter-in-law.
Their aggressive tone and flared nostrils made Chloe take a step back in fear.
I don't care what's going on. Just get out of here.
Clearly frightened, she rejected us in a slightly shaky voice. I understood her annoyance at our sudden intrusion, but I wasn't about to let her off the hook. I apologize for the disturbance. I'll leave now, but as I said earlier, I'll be leaving Lance's parents here with you.
But
As Chloe tried to argue, I dropped my warm smile for the first time. I moved closer to her, staring her down. Do you really think you have the right to refuse? Chloe's lips formed the word, but no sound came out. I took this opportunity to explain to my still bewildered in-laws. Sam and Carol, don't worry. This is indeed the apartment Lance prepared. And this young woman here is Chloe. She is Lance's mistress.
What?
Carol gasped and nearly fell over. Sam had to catch her.
This can't be true. This insolent young woman is with Lance?
That's right. It looks like I lost to someone younger. But at least it's a tidy little apartment, isn't it? Maybe Chloe is good at housework. She might even become the perfect wife and housekeeper you've been looking for. Carol glared at Chloe as if she were something dirty. Even though Chloe might become Lance's new wife, she had already fallen out of favor with Carol. It wasn't surprising, given that their first encounter was a chaotic misunderstanding. Sam, trembling slightly with anger and disbelief, whispered to me in an uncharacteristically subdued voice.
This woman is Lance's mistress. She's staying in the apartment he rented. And you knew all along.
I did. With that single word, Sam buried his face in his hands. Faced with a tiny, disappointing apartment and the revelation that Lance's mistress was living there, my in-laws were too stunned to express their anger. Meanwhile, Chloe was too flustered to even attempt an explanation as both I and my in-laws descended on her. Sam and Carol, it must be disappointing that the new apartment is smaller than you expected. But this is just a one-bedroom place Lance prepared for Chloe. He never planned to live here with you. Well, if you're desperate, you could try squeezing into this cute little room with Chloe. Chloe shook her head frantically, rejecting the idea outright. Apparently, my in-laws had been visiting our home several times while I was at work. They were so bored they'd driven 3 hours just to pass the time at their son's house. Lance had never mentioned it to me, and they'd left no traces behind, so I had no idea this had been happening. During one of these visits, they must have discovered that Lance had rented an apartment.
This is, well, just a temporary separation. I needed space from Amelia. Once things settle down, maybe you two can come stay here eventually.
Lance hurriedly gave that explanation. While I suspected his comment about you two moving in was just polite talk, his parents took it as an open invitation to relocate. Excited about the move, they grew impatient when Lance didn't follow up. So they decided to borrow the apartment key from his bag and make a surprise visit. And now, this disastrous situation had unfolded.
What are you doing here, Mom, Dad?
Lance burst in just as the glaring contest was escalating. I had messaged him on my way here. Though he ran over, his face was pale, and he looked nervous.
What are you doing in a stranger's home? Come on, let's go.
He tried to pull Carol's arm to get her to leave. Despite their misunderstanding, his parents clearly felt betrayed. Shrugging him off, his mother demanded an explanation.
This isn't what it looks like. I mean, it's a misunderstanding, or...
Glancing nervously between me and Chloe, Lance stammered helplessly. Unable to hold back, his father clapped Lance on the shoulder.
You had an affair, didn't you?
Well,
As Lance faltered, his father ruffled his hair enthusiastically.
Good job. That's what a real man does.
Huh?
Sam, it seemed, approved of the younger, more lively mistress over me, who stood there calmly.
It's only natural for a man to stray when he's stuck with a wife who acts like a man, working all the time and bossing him around. Snagging a young woman like this, I'm impressed. She's way more likable than that bossy wife of yours.
The unexpected praise drained the tension from Lance's shoulders. He even allowed a shy, sheepish grin. Even his mother, who had been glaring at Chloe, seemed to decide that Chloe was the lesser evil compared to me.
Well, yeah, she's better than this insolent wife. At least she's young enough to give us grandkids. With you, grandkids were hopeless, but Chloe could give us 2 or 3.
And just like that, I became the unwanted obstacle again.
You're not going to say something petty like you can't forgive his affair or demand compensation, right? You've only been married 6 months. That's practically a trial period. Oh, and didn't you say earlier you wanted to return Lance? Go ahead, return him. After all, Lance, who earns $10,000 a month, is too good for you.
Carol smugly cornered me with her words. Sam nodded in agreement, smirking. Lance, in a desperate attempt to calm them, kept repeating, "Wait," and "That's not true." But his parents, lounging arrogantly, paid him no mind. Seeing Lance teary-eyed and panicked was so pathetic that I decided to highlight his better qualities. Lance supported me, didn't you? You took care of all the housework so I could focus on my job. Even if it wasn't perfect and you made mistakes, I appreciated your effort. The smug smiles on his parents' faces vanished, replaced by deep frowns.
All the housework? You made Lance do everything?
That poor man dumped this awful wife and marry the young woman.
An awful wife who had made Lance her servant. My reputation had hit rock bottom.
Lance, it's pathetic for a man to let his wife boss him around. Stuffing a young woman into this cramped apartment while your useless wife hogs the big one. It's outrageous. You should cancel the lease on this tiny place right away. Then the 4 of us can live together in the bigger apartment.
Yes, that's the best idea. Let's do that.
My in-laws pushed forward with their plan. Lance kept lowering his eyebrows and shaking his head, but no one paid him any attention. Fine. I'll move out of that apartment.
Of course, do it today.
When I made my declaration, Lance panicked even more, sweat pouring from his forehead. His tear-filled eyes were bloodshot. Since it was clear we were heading for a divorce, I decided to expose the truth about our marriage. Well then, enjoy your life with unemployed Lance.
What?
Lance quit his job right after we got married. He said he was too tired. His parents and Chloe froze, mouths agape. I was a bit shocked when he resigned without consulting me, but we settled into a routine where I worked, and Lance became a stay-at-home husband. He's clumsy, but he's diligent and kind, always trying to support me. Housework is a real job, so I wanted to give him spending money, but he refused. The only luxury he allowed himself was a $1 cup of coffee from the convenience store each day. That's how we arrived at his $1 daily wage. Lance looked down awkwardly. It was Sam, who was trembling uncontrollably,
What did you just say?
but his anger wasn't directed at his son's lack of responsibility. As expected, it was aimed squarely at me.
You treated Lance like a slave, giving him only $1 a day. How dare you disrespect my son?
You horrible wife. Give Lance back to us.
I had already agreed to return him, so their shouting was unnecessary. In their rage, they failed to notice a critical issue. Only Chloe, looking uneasy, hesitantly spoke up.
Lance is unemployed? Then, where was the money coming from? How did he pay rent for this apartment?
She likely already knew the answer but wanted confirmation. Gently, I provided it. Of course, he was using my money without permission. The idea that coffee was his only luxury, ridiculous. How much did you spend each month, Lance? $1,000? $2,000? When I had checked my savings passbook, I found repeated ATM withdrawals. At first, the amounts were small, $50 here, $100 there. But after 3 months, he seemed to lose all restraint, withdrawing $1,000 or more in quick succession. Since it was an account I rarely used, I wouldn't have noticed if I hadn't grown suspicious of Lance. Chloe, you were coming and going from our apartment too, right? Thank you for doing the laundry and cooking for me. Your heart-shaped meatballs were delicious. You're very talented in the domestic arts. Chloe had been under the impression that Lance was a high earner. Now, learning he was unemployed, she glared at him with disdain. Desperately, Lance stammered a weak defense.
It's not what you think. You're misunderstanding. Amelia, you're the only one for me. Please believe me.
Given that his mistress was standing right there, Lance's excuse was laughably bad. Not that a better excuse would have helped him at this point. Spare me your excuses. I already had a private investigator look into your relationship with Chloe. You met her at a pub right after our wedding, started dating, and spent half the week going on daytime dates, enjoying fancy restaurants and shopping sprees. You enjoyed a cozy stay-at-home date at our apartment 2 or 3 times a month, didn't you? I realized Lance was cheating 3 months ago. It happened when I cleaned the drain in the bathtub. Lance, being inattentive, would clean the tub itself but never notice the drain. I didn't expect him to handle every little task, so I would take care of such details myself. But that day, I found long, bright brown hair in the drain. Lance had short black hair, and I had black. Even his mother, who briefly came to mind, had short, graying hair, and his father didn't have enough hair to shed. At that moment, I pictured Lance inviting his mistress over to our home, spending quality time together. I imagined a woman in an apron diligently cooking and cleaning. That's why the apartment sometimes seemed impeccably clean, or why he occasionally served such delicious meals. How must Lance have felt watching me enjoy the food his mistress prepared, saying, "This is delicious." Thinking about the taste of that Italian meatballs now makes me sick.
Wait, is Lance seriously unemployed?
Chloe asked irritably. That's right. I respected him as a stay-at-home husband, but it turns out he was just a freeloader. No, a thief, actually.
Unbelievable. I've been played.
Chloe sighed heavily and held her head in her hands.
Look, I'm sorry, okay? I'll break up with Lance. I just had a little fun because he seemed rich and kind. But knowing he used his wife's money for his affairs? That's beyond gross.
For someone with such a cute appearance, Chloe didn't hold back on her harsh words. Lance shrank back, unable to defend himself. Chloe pointed at Lance and laughed mockingly.
By the way, your wife told me. This guy claimed I'm an executive, so I don't need to go to the office. I'm just a lonely man with too much time and money. A thief saying that? Pathetic.
Chloe's carefree laughter was infectious, and I found myself smiling slightly. For the record, I'm the executive. Lance saw me go to work every day, but I guess I must have looked like I had too much time on my hands. Even Lance's parents, who had been yelling earlier, seemed to catch on to the situation and realized it wasn't in their favor. Carol timidly spoke up, her voice shaking.
This can't be true, can it?
Her wide, fearful eyes darted between me and Lance, silently begging for confirmation. But Lance, utterly defeated, sat motionless with his eyes rolled back. Perhaps scared of my answer, Sam frantically shook his head.
It's a lie. It has to be a lie. Women don't become executives. I clearly heard Lance say he made $10,000 a month. Right, honey?
Yes, that's what Lance said. He wouldn't lie about that.
Even before he quit, Lance's salary was nowhere near $10,000 a month. It was just enough to scrape by while living alone in the city. $10,000 a month. That's my salary.
What?
Carol collapsed onto the floor, rendered speechless. Sam stood there with his mouth open, unable to come up with a retort. I guess Lance wanted to impress his parents with his supposed success. Getting married to me might have made Lance feel financially secure, causing him to get overly confident. Perhaps his boastful lies were what prompted his parents to crash our home, fully intent on leeching off us. Hey, Lance! When I called his name, Lance let out a short, frightened squeal and ducked his head.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Despite his cowardice, he constantly made terrible decisions. Lance's foolishness was so overwhelming that I couldn't even muster anger anymore. Apologies won't cut it. I want a divorce right now.
I don't want a divorce. I love you, Amelia. I really do.
The more he professed his love, the more disgusted I felt. I don't love you, Lance. You're useless as a stay-at-home husband. On top of that, you cheated on me, wasted my money. What could I possibly love about you?
Amelia, I love you. I really do.
His excuses and professions of love were so pathetic. It was beyond saving. You have no right to refuse after betraying me with your affair. We're getting divorced. I spat the words out firmly. Lance's tears poured down in large drops as his parents froze in place. Chloe glared at them with open hostility. Leaving the mess of these four behind, I walked out without looking back. Later, as I declared, Lance and I divorced. For the record, Lance and Chloe also broke up. I had Chloe immediately vacate the apartment and demanded compensation. Not wanting any more trouble, she paid the full amount without complaint. Lance, on the other hand, was less cooperative when I demanded compensation for his infidelity and the money he had squandered.
You know I don't have a job or money. This is cruel.
His tears and attempts to evade payment were painfully obvious. Eventually, one of his relatives, unable to watch him flounder any longer, taught him how to come up with the money. As a result, Lance managed to pay the compensation and return the money he had stolen, all at once.
This horrible wife, look what you've done to us.
I received an angry call from his parents the day after the compensation was deposited.
You stopped sending us money, and now you've done something this monstrous.
Of course, I had stopped sending money to his parents right after the divorce. I had no obligation to support them, but they criticized me relentlessly for it. Now that they had settled down, why were they calling to yell at me again?
Lance sold our land without telling us and used the money to pay you.
Give it back. Return our money.
Apparently, thanks to his relatives' advice, Lance sold off the family property without considering the consequences. It was bad luck for his parents that the land, including the house they lived in, had been in Lance's name, likely for tax purposes. Really? Lance sold the land your house is on? Oh, that's so like him. When I couldn't help but laugh, his parents completely lost it.
This isn't funny. We're being told to leave our own house all of a sudden. It makes no sense.
This is your fault. Take responsibility.
What responsibility could they possibly think I have? If anything, they should be praising their foolish son for taking responsibility for his infidelity by paying compensation, regardless of how he managed to do it. The in-laws continued their screeching accusations, their voices close to a wailing scream. But it wasn't my problem, so I hung up the phone. Then, I blocked their number. Just as I sighed in relief, thinking it was finally over, I got a call from Lance.
Well, can I come back to you after all?
What? After our divorce, Lance had moved back to his parents' house. But since he'd sold their property, it seemed his living arrangements were about to disappear as well.
Please, I'll cut ties with my parents, I swear. Just take me back.
I felt utter contempt for Lance, who was only trying to save himself while leaving his parents with nowhere to go. Just hearing his pitiful voice made my skin crawl, so I hung up without responding. Considering how one of his relatives helpfully suggested selling the property, it was likely that Lance and his parents were despised by their entire extended family. Lance was bad enough, but his parents, with their overbearing and unreasonable behavior, must have caused some trouble in the past. It was doubtful anyone would come to their aid. And so, my marriage ended after just 6 months. The last 3 months had been consumed by uncovering his affair. What a nightmare. Rushing into marriage was a huge mistake. I'm all about my career. To avoid worrying those around me, I made a point of acting cheerful. I had expected to feel a bit lonely, but in reality, being single again was absolutely amazing. My friends, who had married in their 20s, now had kids who were more independent, meaning they had time to hang out with me again. We went on trips, indulged in self-care like getting our nails done, and kept so busy there was no time to feel down. Work is great, but you've got to make time for yourself too. Having experienced failure, I felt more relaxed. There was no need to obsess over love or work. I could just be myself. And now, I was fully embracing my solo life once again.